That's great. So we're now beginning our session 3 after having had fantastic presentations already this morning and great participation both online and in the room. So now we are moving into the second part of this symposium, and in this session we will hear from 3 invited guests on good care practices in other organizations. Each of our speakers will speak for up to 10 minutes each, and we will then follow those presentations with short breakout sessions. And when it comes to the breakout sessions, which we will have both online and in the room, I'll give you further instructions. I won't fill your minds with what's going to happen next. But what I would like to do now is introduce our 3 speakers. Our first speaker is Cleo McCormack. Our second speaker will be Joy Tendai Kangare, and our third speaker will be Sue O'Grady. And I will, as I did before, I will introduce each of them separately just before they speak. So our first speaker is Cleo McCormack, and Cleo is the head of organizational development at Version1, and she has extensive experience in workplace resilience and well-being. She is a master practitioner in this area and is deeply passionate about empowering individuals and organizations to develop resilience and well-being strategies that drive positive outcomes. Cleo has qualifications in executive coaching, organizational development, organizational behavior, and a range of psychometric assessments, and she brings a wealth of expertise to her role. She is also a committed mindfulness practitioner who believes that mindfulness is a powerful tool for enhancing well-being and performance. At Version1, Cleo oversees the organization's 3 leadership programs and coaching programs, shaping the development and growth of current and future leaders. She has a proven track record in designing and delivering bespoke leadership development programs that are tailored to meet the unique needs of each individual and organization. But Cleo's passions extend beyond her work in organizational development. She is also a dedicated advocate for sustainable practices in the workplace and beyond, firmly believing that organizations have a vital role to play in creating a more sustainable future. Cleo is committed to helping organizations develop sustainability strategies that drive positive change. So Cleo, you're very welcome to TU Dublin, and we look forward to hearing your words.
Thank you so much. Hi everybody, I'm absolutely honoured to be here today and to speak to you about good practices. So good practices, Version1 has just been voted the best place to work in Ireland by Great Place to Work, which is fantastic, and that sounds like we have it all under control, but we don't. You know, we have come a long way, but we have a lot of work that we still want to do. So I'm head of organizational development. So what does that mean? That means that I bring a humanistic lens to our 5-year strategy, that I align people, purpose with also growth targets and revenue. And for me, it's about bringing this human lens into everything that we do. So this week, and this is something that myself and Aoife were talking about, we did a series called Be That Leader, be there when it matters. And we had a huge response. There's 3,100 people that work in Version1, and 580 of those are managers, and we had half participation, which is very good considering people are on client sites and on projects, so it was recorded. And what we did was we picked 4 topics that we thought would make an impact, and one was how to be that manager when somebody is a carer. And we really identified what does caring look like, and we called out all the different ways in which you can be a carer. And we talked about Version1, we espouse, you know, that we are a great place to work and that we have flexibility, but in reality, what does that look like? And we talked about that people sometimes are afraid to ask for flexibility because they don't want to be considered to be not dependable or to have other issues outside of work. And managers sometimes think, well, I don't want to be asking about people's life outside of work. And what we said was, people talk about having a work-life balance. Well, I would respectfully push back on that and say it's a life. People have a life. You bring your whole self to work. Managers or leaders go out and they look for employees and they get people. And people were messy and we're complex and we have lives. So we were talking about how can a manager or a leader know if someone is a carer? And I'm like, listen, we were talking about 3 levels of listening. Ask questions. What did you do at the weekend? I was with my mother. I was looking after my mother. And then I noticed that over 4 weekends, if the mother appeared in the team, and I say, you've been tell me more about your mom. It sounds like, you're fantastic. You do a lot of work. How can I be useful to you? As a manager, asking someone, how can I be useful to you? Do you need any support? Can I help you? And being flexible. And if someone says that they're a carer, accommodate, accommodate, accommodate. That's our mantra. And we were talking about what to say and what not to say. In version 1, some of the things that we're doing is team charters. And on that team charter, we're encouraging good practice to be, what is your code word if you have to go, if you're a carer? So let's scenario plan. You're on a customer site, something happens, and your manager is in a meeting. Code word, going to plan B. And that is really powerful because it reduces stress. It's like, my manager is okay with this, we've agreed it, and we're going to plan B. And for me as a mom, my director, Louise, she doesn't have kids, but I'm very clear that if I say childcare, she knows I'm gone. And the rest of the team have it in hand. Because me as a mom, I always have plan A, plan B, plan C. So even just knowing I can do that is really powerful. Our team charters, on my own team, I have people in Bengaluru and in Delhi, and they celebrate different festivals and they have different responsibilities. That's all on our team charter. Our jobs names, our kids' names, our religious festivals, our birthdays, all of it is on the team charter. My kids' crash hours are on the team charter. So there's nobody ever thinking that's not okay. It is okay. And some of the people were writing in the chat, but what if the customer is unrealistic? And what if it's the customer pushing back saying that the person can't go? I say, well, we have our values, honesty and integrity, customer first, but not at the detriment to losing employees. So we would push back and say, version 1 is a great place to work. We get the best and the brightest to work for us, but it's important to us that they're treated with respect. And in order to do that, we need flexibility. And be flexible. Maybe that's not the right project for that person at that time. So that's some of the things that we consider. Just move this across. I'm not used to this one. That one. So a while ago, when I first came into version 1, I had a squiggly career. So I would have worked in the beauty industry for years before that. And I was like, God, there's a huge element of heroism. People love working for version 1. But I could see that people were probably in the strain, and particularly people that were parents, that were carers, that had additional responsibilities. And everybody, it's a high performance organization. Everybody wants to do well. So I researched a tool by the Wellbeing Foundation called RAW, which is Workplace Resilience and Wellbeing. It's a world's first measure of resilience, and it comes with training. And now we are rolling this out, and this will be mandatory for managers. So it's empowering people to increase their own resilience, but it's also equipping managers with the language and the tools to make sure that we're not pushing people into strain. Because you can see what a cliff that is. And imagine trying to climb from here to burnout. And we know, like you guys are the academics, people going out and burnout, it could be 6 weeks to 18 months. And that's not what we want. And some of the things that we were talking about on Moments That Matter and Be That Leader was people with the highest levels of compassion sometimes have the lowest levels of self-compassion. And they're the people who might say yes to everything. So we might need to help them with boundaries, with time management. And, to see that as a huge strength of theirs will help them temper it a little bit, and be like, let's have a look at your workload and what can we do to be flexible? Because things change. I'm looking at you because you mentioned the service opened up, it enabled you to go back to work. nothing is ever stagnant. This is how it is right now, but it won't stay like this. You know, there might be opportunity to do extra work at the weekend or be on that project. And with flexible work, we're a hybrid working model, but if you want to work at home all the time, that's totally fine. And we don't care when you do your hours, once you do your hours, which as a mum is brilliant, because I can log back on at 10 o'clock and I can do my emails. But what I ask my own team to do is schedule them to go out within working hours, so you don't trigger people to respond. And I don't really like that message at the end that says, I work certain hours and don't expect a response. I hate it. But I'm like, you have the option with the technology to schedule it to go out the next day. So I don't care when you do it, but for respect of the people. So we are training managers and employees with the pressure performance curve. And we are also talking to them about the 5 pillars of resilience. And each of these are of equal importance. We're always developed by coaches, psychologists, and the best and the brightest in this field. It's based on loads of good stuff on resilience, like grit, flexible mindset, determination. But I would say, if you imagine these like train carriages, the first one is most important because it pulls the others, which is energy. And energy is made up of sleep, boundaries, the ability to say no, healthy consumption, and exercise. Okay. And we all know what it's like when you haven't slept. It's hard to be positive about the future when you're tired. It's hard to have inner drive and to think flexibly when you're exhausted, you know, and it's hard to maintain your friendships. And we want to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And we tend to do things that we think are going to be good for us, like, you know, I'm just going to stay home and chill, when in actual fact, getting out and meeting friends for an hour is better for our mental health, you know? So we help people with this pillar around energy, but we're realists. What's realistic for you? You know, maybe this is how it is right now, but what does next week look like? So we start to try and move them and give them tools around flexible thinking. What would future you tell you to do? Sorry, I'm probably running over with time. So last but not least is just this stress container. And we really want people to know that there's all this stuff on top of carers. And then we want them to just know that we want to open that valve once in a while. And the valve is around raw and all of the training, and to show them the difference between healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms. So that's just some of the things that we're doing at version 1, just to give you an insight. We still have a lot of work to do, and hopefully there's some takeaways here. And please reach out to me on LinkedIn if anybody has any questions or wants to know more about this. Always happy to get involved. Okay, thank you so much.
I just want to apologise to people online because they didn't see the slides. For some reason, it didn't move on. I'm going to put them in the chat for them. Okay, sorry about that.
Of course, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cleo, for sharing the approach that you take to the issue around working and caring and seeing it as a whole, a very much part of the whole person, which is a very important way of looking at it. Our second speaker now is Joy Tendai Kangare. She's a BL and a junior counsel specialising in employment law at the Bar of Ireland. She studied at King's Inns, and following completion of her BCL law degree at the UCD Sutherland School of Law, she went to King's Inns. Yeah. She's a dedicated activist and advocate, inspired by the African principle of Ubuntu, which speaks to community, unity, respect, and dignity, and means I am because we are. So it moves it from being an individualized to a collective endeavor. Joy Tendai is fueled by being community focused and authentically using her voice to elevate everyone she connects with. Joy Tendai is an international public speaker, writer, columnist, trainer, lecturer, and founder. She regularly contributes to topics of race, justice, and equity, as well as being called upon for her expertise in justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion advocacy. Joy Tendai is the founder of Roots in Africa, Ireland, a not-for-profit that empowers the African Irish community through various social and educational programs. Born in Zimbabwe, Joy Tendai is the first female recipient of the Denham Fellowship. She's a committee member of the Climate Bar Association, committee member of the Bar of Ireland Equality and Resilience Committee, and former board member of AIMPIS, which is the Adult Learning Charity. So you're very, very welcome, Joy Tendai.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Something that I've always been told to sometimes not mention, but I think it comes as a priority, is that I'm a mom to two teenagers. I'd love to say good things about them, but we know as well as teenagers that we're in the trying period, but I love them dearly. And also a mother who's literally writing her leaving cert as well as my son is writing his leaving cert. So thank you so much for inviting me and having me. I wanted to speak today, especially as we come to the end of International Women's Month or celebration. And I always feel with these things, we're not, they shouldn't be celebrated or boxed into 1 month, because we should be celebrating womanhood. We should be celebrating in terms of caring responsibilities. That is something that we just don't put away and then you say, okay, fine, this is the month for carers, this is the month for mothers. You know, this is a perpetual thing. And I think if we start from that premise, it is a good point to give. I didn't prepare slides because I wanted to take it up. I really like interactive conversations, but I feel that it is so important that maybe the lived voice, I know we've had the lived experience panel, but it's just to share my story in terms of being a migrant woman, mother, and the many hats that I wear. And you know, there's the list of things that I do, but as again, I'll say that the most important fact, I mean, you talked about the fact that, you know, you've got a plan B when going. I find that when it comes to my children, that, you know, that comes priority. Sometimes difficult to do, but it is something that is important. As a migrant woman, and when I speak, I'm speaking from my own life, because everyone, you know, has a different, and having come from different, or having a different migratory pattern to come to Ireland. I came to Ireland during the Celtic Tiger, started off in the IT industry. So I've had a multiple change of professions to be where I want to be now, which is within the law. I feel that looking even in this room, when you look at it, what are we missing? Exactly, you're missing people that look, you know, like me. And sometimes when we have the symposiums, or when we have these talking points, or when we are in an organization, we just look at ourselves as we're just the native Irish. I've got my mom, I've got my sister, I've got my aunt, I've got my next door neighbor who, if anything comes up, I can phone, or I possess privileges in which I can say, sorry if I could just remind me, Cleo said plan B. But I'll tell you, Cleo, those plan Bs are hardly given to migrant workers. Either they're not given to migrant workers, or we're so fearful of asking because we feel that we're in the workplace because we've been given a favor to be there. So people will stay or have the extra pressure, the stress of trying to care for their families in ways that you find are impossible. And that leaves with people little options. And with that, within that group, you have, let's say, for example, if someone is parenting alone, you know, there's always an assumption. And even if you're native to Ireland, you will have the assumption that there is someone at home, you've got a partner, but not everyone has a partner. So that, or not everyone has those good friends that you can entrust, and everyone else is having their own lives. So we have to look at this, the caring aspect and planning from a holistic view of saying, through an eye of privilege. As women, as carers, what privileges do we hold? like I started at the beginning, I came here, I don't have my family is still in Zimbabwe. So if anything happens to my children, it all falls to me. I don't have my mom, I don't have my aunt, I don't have my sister, I don't have Miss Kim or whoever is from, who is next door neighbor that has known me and will be willing. So what do I have to do? I'm going to have to dig deep into my pockets and pay someone, find that person that will come and look after my children, or if I was caring for an elderly person, that would be someone who's willing. But within the caring, as that person that has raised children here, I've contacted people and they've told me we do not look after Black children. Point blank, like literally. And that is not the people that we look after. So, and then you take your child to a creche and you find that I had my children coming back home with nappy rush, like they were only cared for when they knew that I was coming to collect them. But yet, I'm not asking for free. It's not being, the service that I'm asking is not done for free. I'm paying the same amount on top of not having the supports. And then we look at my journey going back to, as an adult learner, going back to college. Our institutions are aware of the burdens that, we're all screaming, we love the buzzword diversity, we're diverse, we're inclusive, we're bringing everyone. But what does bringing that diversity mean? Do people sit down at the table when you don't have people who, representing those communities, when you're making your plans of diversity, and understand what is needed in order to be inclusive? Or even within the feminist movement, we have organizations that represent women, but we've had campaigns over the years where whether on race, whether the Muslim women, whether migrant women from Black backgrounds, we come as an afterthought. We come as a thought, oh, we need Joy and I in the picture so that we meet our KPIs of being diverse. But you've not even planned. So this is the things that I really urge. When we talk about womanhood, it's not just a white Irish woman. There's women. We're looking for a multicultural society. We're enrolling people in colleges, and most of the migrant people that come in would have maybe had families, and like myself, are going back to education and have children. And you find that most campuses, it's difficult to have childcare. And my own story is when I was lucky enough that the institution I went in were understanding, but I had to take the step that when my children's Easter holidays didn't coincide with my lectures, and I couldn't find, and I begged everyone I could to look after my children. My children sat with me in my law lectures. I had to bring. So my children went to university before they even finished primary school. A good learning for them, but these are the things. So, where children can sit in lectures, are institutions willing to accept that, that there isn't anything, unless if you provide a dedicated, know the needs. And that even goes back to who is in your administration. Do you have a diverse administration that understands other cultures? And that is so, I think that's a starting point. And again, moving on to the workplace, we are everyone, we have everyone wants to have diverse, equal, that is what it is. I mean, we even know that there's organizations who, in order to get funding, have to show that they're meeting diversity. But there is no structures for allowing. And then we go back to something that is not understood. When you introduced me, you talked about Ubuntu, which is I am because we are. Migrants' relationships or families I grew up, my cousins are not my cousins, they're my sisters. My sister's children are my children. So in that situation of lacking the knowledge and understanding, if I say, often I say I'm looking after my sister's children, I might not be granted that grace to say those, I have to look up after those children, but they are my children, and that is my culture. So what I urge in the whole, learning, and I think looking at feminist movements, looking at institutions, looking at society, have the knowledge of the people that you want to bring in. There is no diversity or inclusion without knowledge. Sorry, I don't want to be it. And most importantly, let's work together and believe. I know one thing that brought me to Ireland was the Cade Miller culture, which I was taught by my Irish teachers in Zimbabwe and who inspired me to come to Ireland. Cade Miller culture and Ubuntu are two magic philosophies to lead with. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much indeed, Joy Tendai. We really appreciate you broadening and deepening the conversations that we've been having today. So thank you very much indeed. And now our third speaker, Sue O'Grady. Sue, it's a great pleasure that you are with us today. A little bit of Sue's bio now. Sue O'Grady leads the marketing function within Family Carers Ireland. Family Carers Ireland is the national charity supporting family carers in the home and workplace. She's in the position since 2018 and is driven to highlight the challenges that family carers face and influence positive change in their lives, while ensuring that Family Carers Ireland becomes a household charity name and is recognised as the expert in family carer support. Sue holds an MBA from DCU. She has a marketing degree, a diploma in management, and a certificate in digital marketing. She has also facilitated the setup of a youth club for autistic teens in Ballyroan, where she volunteers weekly. This is called Vibe Tribe. What a cool name.
Not me. Kids came up with that one.
Absolutely. So, Sue, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, I think, everybody, and I'm missing in my CV there that I still can't share on Teams after 3 years of trying to do it. I'm delighted to be here to talk about something I'm so passionate about, and that is supporting caring employees within our workplace. And it's caring employees like Sarah and Naomi and Karen and Julie, who shared their stories, and these are stories that we hear every day through our charity. So it's really, I suppose, time that we future-proof the employees and we future-proof our workplaces. So I think it's obvious from the stories that we've heard today that none of us know what is around the corner. Nobody wakes up and says, today I'm going to be a family carer and I'm going to give up everything and place all of my responsibility on somebody else. So a child may be born with a disability or diagnosed with autism. A parent or partner may have a life-changing diagnosis or injury. And I think this hits on what Ashley, I think it is, said earlier. Everyday mums, dads, daughters, sons, relatives, friends and colleagues become family carers for their relatives, friends and neighbours. And I think we changed our name back in 2016 to Family Carers Ireland. And there was a huge debate over that because that word family, I suppose, to us brings everything else in. But without it, everybody thinks we're a home care worker organisation. We do not represent home care workers. We definitely employ them to provide respite for people like Sarah and Naomi, but we do not advocate and lobby on behalf of home care workers. So it's just important to say that. So I think as well, we've heard this, and this is, I suppose we've looked at our messaging over the last couple of years and listened to the voices of the carers that we support. And as they will always say, it is a very rewarding thing to do, but it is also difficult, frightening and isolating, and it shouldn't be. We want carers to know that the support for them to make it less of a battle and to know that they are not alone, and that is why our charity Family Carers Ireland exists. So who we are, we're the national charity supporting the 500,000 plus people in Ireland who are in some level of a family caring role. And that includes young carers as well. So they're caring for loved ones such as children or adults with additional needs, physical or intellectual disabilities, frail older people, those with palliative care needs, or those living with chronic illnesses and important mental health challenges and addictions. I think a lot of people don't see themselves as family carers, especially for partners with addiction and mental health challenges. So that's why we always include it. Sorry, did I do something wrong?
No, you didn't. It's not moving for people at online, so I'm just going to try and leave it like that.
We
and
can
then
scroll down.
hopefully it'll move.
Sure. I'll go down. So as a national charity, we have a free phone care line. I'm not going to go through all these and bore the eyes off you. But I suppose it's important to know we have community and intensive support managers servicing all 26 counties in Ireland. We help with those nightmare forms of carers allowance and negotiating fair deal and learning about power of attorney and all of these things that you never really have to understand until you're forced to understand them. We look at things like emergency care planning. As someone said, it's worrying about the now and it's worrying about the future. But what happens if you actually, God forbid, get in an accident on the way home from work? We have an emergency care plan that's free and ready to, I suppose, pounce into action to make sure that your loved ones are looked after. Big picture, mentioned the 500,000, 68% are women. We've 67,000 young carers in this country, and they are kids between 10 and 18 whose lives are significantly, I suppose, affected by caring at home. That could be, I suppose, caring for a sibling or caring for a grandparent or parent who has had an injury. And I suppose some of the young carers, we have the Carer of the Year awards every year, and we honour 4 young carers, and they're the most amazing kids you've ever met. And actually, often they're the ones that can calm down their siblings, especially with autism and stuff like that. They're the ones that will go, Mom, I'll bring him to bed, I'll sing him a song, I'll do whatever. And they give up so much. And we have a young carer team that are there to support that cohort of children. Family carers provide 19 million hours of unpaid care each week. Now, that was actually pre-COVID. So we don't even know how to try and calculate this one since COVID, because when day services stopped, when the schools stopped, and already actually services were pretty crap before COVID, and parents took anything that was going on offer. So it was like, I'll give you 2 days back instead of 3, I'll take them. So it's still not back to pre-pandemic levels. So carers are definitely picking up the mantle and doing an awful lot. And in terms of saving the state, 20 billion euro a year. When you think about our most beautiful hospital being built up the road in James's and how much that is costing. People like Sarah and Karen and Julie and Naomi can't strike. They can't say, you know what, I'm not being treated well. I'm not going to be one of these statistics that's leading to saving the state 20 billion. So I'm not going to care today. You can't do that. So we try and do that for you, and we lobby tirelessly with government. And actually we do a huge amount of research, and we have a research area within our website. So a few of you might be interested to see some of the reports that we've done. We have an amazing research team, and we also partner with a lot of universities. We're just about to release a report on carer harm, because although nobody wants to talk about it, it happens. And the research was covered between with parents of children with autism and those who are actually caring for elderly parents with dementia as well. And it's really, really sad, but it has to be. I swear to God, I'd nearly drive it up to the door myself and put it in the faces of all of them to see this is what's going on behind closed doors, and we have to talk about it. Change landscape, I'm not really going to go into this other than we obviously await the results from census of last year, but it's interesting, and talking to Julie just before the event started this morning, she doesn't know if she ticked the question 23 box in the census last year of am I a carer, because it's actually worded to make you think, well, God, I don't get carers allowance, so I better not tick that. We did a big campaign, but we battled with them to try and change the question, which is very leading, and change the language of it. Hopefully they're going to do that for the next time. But we would still say it's completely underestimated within any census, and that's why the numbers that we have that are done through several other research surveys would bring it up to 500,000. Hugely aging population. That, as brilliant as it is, that modern medicine is making people live longer, that has impacts on caring for those people when they're older. Who's going to care for them? We don't have enough staff in nursing homes. We don't have enough home care workers in the market. It's going to be family. And to do that, that's okay to keep them. As you said, Karen, it was brilliant to keep them at home for as long as they can. That's what they wanted. And most people want that, but with support. And with, I mean, as I said to Karen, I think it's very telling when the HSE will send 2 people in to lift someone on a hoist, but they'll leave. Doesn't matter how many people are with you to do it yourself. So it just kind of shows, I suppose, that hidden sense of, well, sure, they'll just get on with it, because what else are they going to do? A day in the life, I suppose, and again, we bring up this slide and we talk about it because if you even do the meal prep and the general household, you mightn't be at the round the clock care yet. You mightn't be at the medication management. Most people are definitely doing this and this. But if you're starting to meal prep, especially for your elderly parents, that is only going to intensify over time. And if you do any of these things, you are a family carer. And I know people hate using the term carer. I thought the word refuse was quite a strong one. And look, yeah, you ask people, they're like, the carer, God, it makes me feel like a hero. There's a heroism assigned to it. And again, talking earlier, the more people just identify, and we're not talking about labeling people, but it's just identifying, actually, I am mom, number 1, or son or daughter, number 2, but I am also a family carer. And lifting the lid on that means that all of the supports and services that charities like that we have, I suppose, become available to you, because without that, you're kind of walking that way, so that's why we would encourage self-identification, and that's a global phenomenon. That's not an Irish thing. That's everywhere. So it's definitely something that we're trying to fix and encourage more. So we run a caring employers program because we're brilliant in the community. To be honest, we've been doing it for 30 years, and I think there was a real realization of there's a huge number of people, 1 in 9, so nearly 250,000, who are in the juggle struggle, as I call it. So full paid employment with a family caring role. How do we reach them? They don't have time because they're working and they're flying home and they're doing the speech and language therapy and the play therapy, and they're on the phone to the local TD giving out that something that has been promised hasn't been done, and before you realize it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're just like, I'll answer one more email and then I'll go to bed. So we bring the services and supports that we provide in the community directly to the door of the organisation. So, and it all starts, and we've talked about this already this morning, it's about that recognition. It's starting off with a very simple piece of going, do you know what? We do have people in our organisation that are doing this. There's 1 in 9 of them actually that are doing it. And we need to carve a culture. It's not about going, oh God, Carers Week is in June. Let's do something like that. Let's do, have a coffee morning. It's an ongoing event. And again, Pride gets a whole month. So it drives me mad that caring actually only gets a week, but we'll change that as we go. So it's a long-term cultural strategy, lifting the stigma and making sure that people see that it's safe to talk about it. Again, it's been talked so many times already today, making sure that if I divulge to my manager about my personal circumstances, that he's not or she going to look at me and go, bit of a burden there now, God, she's going to be asking for hours off and leave and whatever else it is. It's actually, and I suppose I'll jump into the middle there, it's actually realizing that if they are a family carer, they're committed, they're loyal, they're multitaskers, they're amazing at stress managing. Last June, we had a family carer who's actually worked with us for many years on the advocacy side, joined the caring employer team. She left work 20 years ago to care for her mum that got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She said, just going to leave now for 6 months, get her sorted, get an understanding. And 20 years passed. Her dad got diagnosed with cancer. She had 2 boys who were born with severe autism and complex needs. In the middle of all of that, her husband dropped dead in the kitchen of a heart attack. So a widow, family carer on her own. And then we got in touch with her last year and said, you know what, there's an 18.5-hour role coming up on this project. We think it'd be amazing. You'll be going through interviews and everything. She said, what? Leave it to me. And she nailed it. And she didn't get it because we knew her. She got it because she was the best candidate for the job. And she was amazing. And I mean, she's nearly annoying. She's so enthusiastic coming into work every morning, because there's just some days you're like, oh my God. But she's inspiring, because she said, the door closes, the boys are going off to day service. They're in adult day services now. She said, I walk past the washing and I make my coffee and I sit at my laptop and she comes alive. And it's amazing to see it. So a massive advocate, and we'd be pushing it ourselves, that actually let's look at these full-time roles that are coming and see how we can split them and make them 18.5 hours, so carers allowance can still be paid. And that's awful about the 400 hours affecting your carers allowance, by the way. I'll have to bring that to our policy manager. It's about creating carer pillars, and this is a really important one. In any D&I strategy that I've seen in organizations over the last 4 years, there is not one that has carers within their own pillar. Every single pillar across every organization, it's parents and carers, it's family and carers. And that I truly and very passionately believe is wrong. Family carers should have their own pillar. There's 1 in 9 people working here, so there's enough people to be coming and giving support. And it's been mentioned many times today, it's about peer support. And it's all well and good coming in and talking to other people who have children, family issues, whatever it is. It's a different challenge that family carers have, whether it's children with additional needs or looking after a parent with dementia. It is just different, and you need to give them that respect and space to support each other in it, without anything else. It is all about the bottom line. Anytime we're going out and pushing caring employers, someone will say, well, is there a cost? There absolutely is, because we come in as the partner. It's never anything other than covering our time. But it does, I suppose, we don't want carers to leave their jobs. At the end of the day, if your back is against the wall and you're looking at both and you're like, well, I can't turn my back on the person that I love and I care for, so my only option is to turn my back on my job. We actually don't want that to happen at all, for many of the reasons that we've talked about today, from a financial, from a socialization perspective, and even for the likes of TU Dublin. You know, if somebody mid-manager level is leaving, there's a study that says it's likely to cost about 9 times their monthly salary to replace them. So, and if you even get 3 people leaving, you know, it shouldn't be. Carers leave is brilliant. Carers benefit not so brilliant, especially if you're on a decent salary. It's statutory. It's absolutely amazing to have. There's loads of other EU countries that don't have it. But we would actually love for organizations to be more flexible and go, okay, great that you want to take carers leave, but actually, would you like to work 2 days a week? Or what, you know, that discussion of what can you do and how can we do it. I'll send the deck after so you can have a look at some of that research. But there's an important EU directive on the work-life balance coming up. And it's including the right to request flexible leave and the right to at least 5 carers leave days per year. All of the research that we do with our caring employer members, family carers take an average of 9 annual leave days for medical appointments and other carer responsibility issues that arise. That's 9. We had one lady last year who took all of her annual leave. I mean, annual leave is recharge the batteries, time for you, time for the family. And you know, I mean, the poor woman was just, she was done. She was like, I'm gonna go down to part-time. I can't do this anymore. You know, that's why flexibility, understanding what Cleo was saying, what can I do to help you? What's going on in your life? And it's okay to tell me, don't feel afraid. You know, nobody is asking, family carers are not asking for you to flip policy on its head and completely change it. They're asking for a conversation and flexibility. We've talked about the passport actually with one of our other companies before, and I think it's a brilliant idea because, like that, you're not kind of proving, you're kind of going, here you go.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about it, but yes, I have taken carers leave, or you know, I get every second Friday off, or whatever it is. You know, that the information follows you. One, and actually, this is Irish Lifer, took that carers leave policy, the 5 days, and went, we're going to pay that. Not having our staff down 5 days, amazing. Not all organizations are going to be able to afford to do that. But again, looking at and going, okay, well, instead of, you know, let's stretch the 5 days in terms of their wages across 12 months rather than it coming out on the month and they're getting that financial hit. It's all there for interpretation and enhancement. And it's really important that organizations need to talk about that. Won't go into that. Lots of lots of slides, but basically this is so we I suppose we come into an organization and we send a survey out, and most people are like, I can never see another survey again. That survey is actually a really important piece of the puzzle because we ask prompting questions that make you think, I never thought I was a family carer, but I am. Do you do any of these things? I do. Well, do you realize you're a family carer? Okay. We want to know how many hours a week you're caring. Are you the primary carer? Have you a husband? Do you not? Have you a social, I suppose, circle that will give you any support at all? And from that, we do focus groups. We're actually doing them in SETU in Waterford next Tuesday. And that really gets in, I suppose, to the pressure points that you have, all of the things that you've experienced. We also learn about what goes on in the community, your experience of services in the community. So again, we can go back to government and help shape policy on that. And from that, we do a calendar of events. It's all very practical because again, if I wake up tomorrow and I'm caring for my elderly parent, I have no idea of continence care. I have no idea how to lift them from the bed to the chair or onto the toilet. We come in and we offer that practical training. So all of those topics, we bring experts in. We have an autism expert who talks about responsive behaviours. That's a hugely topical educational piece at the moment because COVID has, I suppose, caused such regression in children with intellectual disabilities as well as elderly. Um, Power of attorney, end of life. Nobody wants to talk about it, but unfortunately, it does happening. It does happen, and again, that practical piece about patient moving and handling. Everything that we do is to make sure that the family carer, their health and well-being is maintained. That's our job. And I know so many people will say, if you're pushing a wheelchair, especially, and you meet somebody on the street, they'll go, how's your mother? Or how's the child? You're invisible. You're like, well, I'm actually okay. Because I'm the one that's actually been up since 4 o'clock, making sure that she's okay. But absolutely no, ask about her. No problem. Don't worry about me. We're the charity that asks the carer how you are. And I think that's really important. We also do, I suppose, carer-centric supports. A lot of the time coming out of a focus group, you will get at least one person who is just so relieved that the carer conversation is happening, that actually their honesty and their walls come down and they're able to put up their hand and go, I'm really struggling here. I'm completely burned out. I've just been running on the treadmill for 5 years and I can't do it anymore. So, and again, we want to keep them working. We want to keep them healthy. So we take them offline. We put them into our intensive support and basically guide them out of that crisis. How can we future proof? Recognizing caring. It's a societal issue. By 2030, 1 in 5 of us is going to be in a family caring role. That is a huge number of people. If you don't start protecting your organizations now, you're going to start losing your top talent. It's simply going to happen. Adopt workplace practices communicate the ones that are there. In one of the surveys we did in a company of 154 respondents, 69% had no idea that carers leave existed. I just find that mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. That's a statutory entitlement to people. And out of the 69, 62 said that they would take it. So again, it's inducting people properly. It's making sure that you're telling them about these policies, clearly communicating them, training your managers. It's hugely important to train your managers. They're the ones that are caring and managing your people. These are some of the companies that we're working with. We're just about to start working with Unpost as well, which is amazing. I still can't believe that we've got the Department of Public Expenditure across the line to spend a bit of money, because they're definitely the ones that don't spend money. But again, I mean, it's seeing people within these departments are even seeing that this is something. They see that they have amazing talent and they want to keep them. So what are the biggest issues that they have? It's caring. What can we do? We can bring in a program. I want to finish on this, and a lot of us use this quote within the carer arena, but I think it's very fitting, because we will either give care or need care at some point in our lives. That's unfortunately a realistic truth. And this is Rosalind Carter, former First Lady. There are only 4 kinds of people in this world: those who have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. So I suppose we're encouraging as many organisations and universities and government departments to come on board and join the Caring Employers programme. There's actually a really good UCD in association with ourselves. There's a Carewell Conversations podcast on Spotify, and it interviews family carers who are working full-time and caring. It interviews the likes of Karen McGann from IBEC, David Grayson, who is a top, I suppose, care related issues over in the UK. And it's really interesting. It actually is, it's a little bit it's done over Zoom or whatever else. So don't be expecting it to be super duper studio stuff. But it is really interesting. And I think the more that all of the conversations that we have, and including today, because I think it's so valuable, but the biggest promise that we have to make to our working carers is what we're going to do next. And I'll leave it with that. And thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here with everybody.
Frankly, a really good conversation and a lot of feedback from everybody, I think, in the group. So a number of points. First of all, it'd be great to see a childcare service on site in TU Dublin, and critically, it needs to be affordable. It's not just enough to have a service; it has to be affordable. And we'd like to see the National Childcare Scheme weaved into that. Remove the 9 a.m. mandatory lectures. Surely that is a basic. I mean, that has to go. That's an obvious. Employers providing information about carers allowance and other various supports and services. Our own organisation providing that. There was a few, maybe some organisations aren't keen to do that because people might actually take some of these benefits. So, we have to open about that and recognise the difference it makes. That ideally children could accompany people students particularly in lectures and the library if possible. And we had the example of what that enabled, and also the example in the group when that wasn't possible. Sometimes people couldn't go to their lectures, couldn't go. So to consider that where it's possible. A much stronger awareness of this rule for carers allowance around the 18.5 hours, both for students on placement and also for staff. So how can we factor that into what we're doing? So much stronger awareness of the rules and the tightness of that, and maybe some lobbying and advocacy around that also, I have to say, by all of us. Ensuring when we're talking about diversity and changes, we really have to ensure that it's not a token kind of on paper conversation, that it is genuinely at the heart of what we do, and that we have to hear from people who have those experiences. And we felt, I think, quite strongly in the group that it is to do with our recruitment practices in TU Dublin. We are not representative of society in Ireland. And how can we then achieve the kind of change that we want in society if we don't have people from all parts of society? But it needs to be much stronger and do it in a genuine way and listening to people who are affected. We'd like to see more research in the organisation around all of these issues. We would like to see training for managers and staff, but again, the training cannot be sort of a paper exercise, a tick the box. It really has to be delivered by those who know what that feels like. And I think that's a very important point. And that, again, back to this inclusion, that is about hearing the reality of those experiences from people who have had those experiences. I hope we spoke a lot about that in the group. I hope I've actually communicated that the way it was requested by colleagues and also speakers. And I think that's our summary for now. I'm sure we've got more. But,
Of course, of course. Thank you. Well, I just want to close this conference by saying thank you to all our speakers. And our speakers were, just to reprise, Helen Russell and Orla O'Connor, and then Sarah Rennick, Naomi Connolly, Karen McWeeny, and Julie Bernard. And Noreen, you voiced the thoughts of people who contributed through the online conversation. I would also like to thank Cleo McCormack, Joy Tendai Kangaroo, and Sue O'Grady for your contributions. I would like to thank everybody for all your contributions and your participation. It's been very, very valuable. But I would also like to say a very special thank you to a very exceptional organising team. And that team were Noreen McNamara, Adam Byrne, Irene Gallagher, along with Julie and Sarah and Aoife, who really were the people who put this together. So thank you very much.